Hi, I'm Pat Combs. Played 8 years professionally, primarily with the Philadelphia Phillies. Spent a half a season with the Milwaukee Brewers. Had the great opportunity to represent my country with the 1987 and 1988 USA teams. And I played with the USA team that won the gold medal in Seoul. Well, I was raised in Texas with a sports-loving family. And great mom and dad, great aunts and uncles who were all involved in my sports life early on. And my dream early in my life, even at the age of 6 and 7, was to play Major League Baseball. I remember sitting down with my uncle one day, Uncle Chet, and he was a big baseball card collector, and we were going through cards, and he just loved talking about the stats and the players. And I made a comment to him one day. I said, Uncle Chet, I'm going to have my face on one of those cards one day. And of course, he chuckled and he said, Pat, do you have any idea how hard it is to make it to the big leagues? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, but I'm going to make it. So I just, with a lot of confidence as a young guy, I just felt like that was my destiny. And being young at that time and playing in the youth leagues in Houston, Texas, I mean, that was everything I lived for, was baseball. Even as I went into high school, I played on as many teams as I could play on in the summer. There were oftentimes I was going from game to game each night. I just couldn't get enough of it. I mean, my passion was baseball. I loved the game, and I literally just didn't want to come off the field. And so even from a young guy, I just felt like this was what I was supposed to be doing with my life. I get to college. I spent my first year at Rice University on a scholarship, full ride, and I had a really rough year. It was the first time in my baseball career that I really had a tough time with the game. And I did some things, turned to some things that weren't helpful in my lifestyle just to try to kind of ease through that pain of not, playing to my potential. And one day felt like this is not the right path. I can't continue to do this. And at that time, I just realized my whole identity was tied up in the game. Soon after that, I transferred to Baylor University. And it was at Baylor, for the first time in my life, I was confronted with something that was beyond the game in terms of a spiritual foundation. Baylor is a great Baptist school, and I had a lot of great teammates. And it was really cool because, I had a chance to go, even as I got re-recruited, I had a chance to go to multiple different schools. I was recruited by University of Texas, Oklahoma, Miami, UCLA. But for some reason, I chose Baylor. And I still to this day can't really tell you at that moment in my life when I had no spiritual foundation at all, while I chose Baylor University. But that was the place for me, and I came across some tremendous teammates, guys who I respected in the game, guys who I grew up playing around in youth ball, and they cared about me more than just as a baseball player. And it was really the first time in my life I got confronted with the fact that there was more to me than just the game, and those guys really opened my eyes to it. Even the coaching staff, I mean, they felt like I was had the potential to play at a high level, but they all looked at me differently. They looked at me as a person, and they were all concerned about me in terms of how I was living my life and how I was doing things off the field. And so I had a number of players that surrounded me that really walked with me through that college experience, and it was so helpful to have guys that cared about me more than just being a ball player, more than just a pitcher who could win some games for their team. And so that was the first time I was really confronted with the idea of who Jesus is and who God is. And I just really had never taken time to investigate that, but that was the first time. So some great seeds were planted at Baylor. Now, I never made a decision to follow God then, but there were some really neat things that happened along the way that got my attention, that made me feel like, there is more to this game. Well, I get the chance to play for the 1987, 1988 USA teams. We ended up winning the gold in Seoul, Korea, and then I started my pro career in 1989. And it was in spring training of '89. I was a first-round pick of the Philadelphia Phillies. Had a chance to start my pro career at the highest level in big league camp, and it was the first time I got to put on that big league uniform. And the feeling was just euphoric. It was everything I'd lived for. It was my entire dream, just seeing me in the mirror with that Phillies uniform on, and it was just kind of a blow-it-away experience. And I loved it. It was like, okay, this is it. I've reached the pinnacle. This is what I've dreamed my whole life, and now I've made it. And it was about a week later when the position players joined camp. Usually the pitchers report first. The position players come in later on. And a guy that was a Hall of Famer, all-star third baseman, Mike Schmidt. Mike on a Sunday morning said, hey, we got chapel service in the media room next door, so let's go. And so I saw a number of guys getting up, heading over there. I felt like, okay, well, I guess I have to go to chapel. I thought I was done with that at Baylor, but apparently I wasn't. So we get to the media room, we sit down. There's probably 15 or 17 guys scattered throughout the room, and Schmidt was sitting pretty close to me, and I looked over, I said, well, hey, where's the rest of the team? He said, well, this is voluntary, you don't have to be here. And I'm like, cool, I'm out. So I get up to literally go out of the room, and he said, no, you're already here, just stay and listen to the message, I think you'll like it. And we got a pretty unique speaker today. And I'm like, okay, well, I can give 20 minutes for this, right? So we sit down, and in comes this kind of small-built guy and curly-headed guy, and he introduces himself. He says, hi, I'm Steve Kreloff. I'm the pastor of Clearwater Chapel Church just down the street, and I want to tell you my story. And he starts out with his own testimony of being raised in a Jewish home, and that blew me away. I mean, here he was talking about being raised Jewish. Then he goes off to college, meets a college roommate who starts reading the Bible with him, and Pastor Kreloff came to realize that Jesus is the Messiah that was spoken about in the Old Testament. And what really caught my attention that day was, as a young boy, my family would take us to church on Easter and Christmas. You know, we had a Catholic background, and my mom felt it was important for us to go to church during those holy days. But here I am sitting here listening to a Jewish guy, and my first thought was, how is this even possible? How does a Jewish guy become a Christian? And he starts talking about all these traditions that his family had, and I thought, wow, that sounds like some of the same traditions we would celebrate, just in a different way. And then he talked about the need to have a personal relationship with Jesus, and he realized he needed to do that. He had never made that decision. And at the end of his testimony, he asked, are there any of you in the room today that have never trusted Jesus with your lives? I heard about his hardships after he made that decision, and I thought to myself, well, it's not going to be nearly as hard for me to do that. I mean, this guy came from a different faith entirely, and here I am sitting here thinking, that's not a hard decision for me. I can make that decision. So we prayed, and I raised my hand, and we all had our heads bowed, and then he came up to me right afterwards, and he said, hey, I noticed you raised your hand. You trusted Jesus today. I said, yeah. I think a pretty easy decision for me. And he said, well, it's really not that easy of a decision, but I do want to talk to you about that. And he said, would you be willing to meet with me every week over the course of spring training? I'd love just to talk about the importance of that decision, what it means. And I said, sure, I'll do that. So over the next 6 weeks in spring training, we met. Now, the first meeting was really, really interesting because he said, hey, I want to take you through the Bible, but I want to do it in a certain way that I think could be helpful for you. So he pulled out this stack of 6 little guides, and it was the Navigator Study Series, which was really an easy-to-use guide because it had a lot of fill-in-the-blanks. As a left-handed pitcher, I like fill-in-the-blank stuff. So it was really cool. He took me through that. I worked through the Bible, filling in the blanks for the answers each week. I would meet with him on a Tuesday morning. We would go through it and help me with the answers and help me understand what were some hard topics at times for me. And it was just really a great time just meeting with him weekly. And I didn't know at the time, but he was actually discipling me, which really means he was just walking with me through God's Word and teaching me the important parts of my decision and what it means and how I needed to start living my life to honor God. That was a huge turning point for me. I had never had anybody do that. He took interest in me. He led me. He talked to me like a real person. He answered all my questions. I mean, we spent hours together over the course of that next 6 weeks, and it really set the foundation for me as a young believer in Jesus. And so I look back at that time. I still stay in contact with Pastor Kreloff. He's an incredible man of God. But it was that turning point in my life where I gave my life to Jesus and really began trying to walk out what it means to be a Christian. Since that time, my life got turned upside down. Living for baseball is so hard to do because if you think about a performance mindset like I had, everything in my life centered around how I did in ball. And now as I started really learning how to walk with Christ, it really changed all of that. It meant to me that I still wanted to live life with excellence. I still wanted to play the game with excellence, but I was doing it for a different purpose. And that purpose became to honor Him and not honor myself or let my moods or my identity be tied to the game of baseball. And it was such a huge turning point for me. It made me a better player. It sure made me a better person. And it benefited my young relationship with my wife tremendously. I was a hard guy to be around when I lost, and she would be the first to tell you that. We had some hard days early in our marriage. But when you start to make those changes in your life. And God's working on you. And the one thing I learned is that He doesn't expect perfection. He just wants you to keep walking. Having a wife that understands that and understands it takes time to move in a direction was the biggest blessing of my life. So I thank God. Thank God for His Son who was sent for us. Thank God for pastors like Steve Kreloff who understand it's not just a decision, it's about really building a great foundation around your faith. And I thank God for my wife who was patient. And I thank God that He puts people in our lives even after that decision, teammates, other ball players, chaplains, who were all working for the same direction for each of us. They want us to become stronger in our faith. They want us to understand what it means to be a citizen of God's kingdom. And their goal is for us to be great representatives, great ambassadors for Jesus. Today, I stand before you just to tell you, it was a long journey, especially early on. It was hard. There were some hard days in my walk, my faith, trying to learn what it means to represent God. But I'm thankful that God sent so many people into my life to help me understand that, to hold me accountable, to just help me through some tough times, and that's what I think about as a believer today, is that, we're impacted by so many evil things in this world. And I think about if we don't have a great team surrounding us, how difficult it is. And early on in my life, I would just try to handle those things myself. I was so filled with pride and overconfidence, and I would just say, hey, I can work through this. And then I would get to a point where I'm saying, you know what, I need some help. And so I'm just thankful that God sent great men and great women into my life to help me be the person I am today.